They came with 100,000 men, the finest army on earth, the greatest siege engineers in the known world, the wealth of an empire that had just swallowed Constantinople whole. And above them, on a mountain ridge in the Iberian Alps, a fortress held by fewer than 8,000 defenders stared back at them. The Ottoman commander looked up at those walls, and he turned his army around. Not once, not twice, 25 times across 25 years, the most powerful military force alive was sent to crush one man. 25 times, that man sent them home. His name was Gjergj Kastrioti. History gave him the name Skanderbeg. And here is the most extraordinary detail of this entire story. The Ottoman Empire trained him. They educated him in their courts. They promoted him through their ranks. They made him one of their finest commanders. They gave him the name of Alexander the Great. And then he came home. And he spent the next quarter century using everything they had taught him to fight them to a standstill. 5 countries still argue over who gets to claim him. No single history holds him. Most of the world has never heard his name. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. This is the story of the man who was built by an empire to serve it, and used everything they gave him to break it. Let us begin where the story gets complicated, because the beginning explains everything that follows. Around the year 1405, historians still argue about the exact date, and we will come back to the arguing because it matters. A boy was born into the Kastrioti family in the mountains of what is today northern Albania. His father was Gjergj Kastrioti, a regional lord, a man who held land, commanded loyalty from his people, and understood one mathematical reality with absolute clarity. The Ottoman Empire was expanding, and there was nothing Gjergj Kastrioti could do to stop it. So he did what shrewd vassal lords across the Balkans were doing. He submitted. He sent tribute to Sultan Murad II. He pledged allegiance. And as a guarantee of that allegiance, as was the standard Ottoman practice for securing the loyalty of regional vassals, he sent his sons as hostages to the Ottoman court. 4 sons were sent into the empire. 3 died there. Disease, circumstance, the grinding reality of life as noble hostages far from home. The 4th survived. His name was Gjergj, and something about this boy, his intelligence, his physical capability, his bearing, caught the attention of the Sultan's court. He was given an education that most men in Europe could not have imagined. Arabic, Turkish, military strategy, logistics, cavalry tactics, siege engineering. He was trained by the most sophisticated military institution in the known world. He studied statecraft and command. He converted to Islam, or was raised within it from the time of his arrival. The sources disagree on the timing. And the Ottomans gave him a name, Skanderbeg. I want you to pause on that for a moment. Iskender, that is the Turkish form of Alexander, as in Alexander the Great, the greatest conqueror in history, the man who built an empire stretching from Macedonia to the edge of India. The Ottoman court looked at this Albanian hostage boy from the mountains and decided to name him after Alexander of Macedon. That was not a casual decision. That was recognition, a statement about what they saw in him. Skanderbeg rose through Ottoman ranks exactly as that name suggested he might. He commanded cavalry. He led campaigns in Anatolia, in Serbia, in Hungary. He was promoted to Sanjak-Bey, a provincial military governor with real authority and real armies under his command. By every Ottoman measure, he was the success story, the model of what the system was designed to produce. A provincial boy, absorbed, educated, Islamicized, made into an instrument of imperial power. He served faithfully for 20 years. And here is what most people don't know. he was watching the whole time. In 1443, everything changed. His father Joan had died years earlier. The Kastrioti family lands had been absorbed into Ottoman administrative territory, which was, by definition, no longer Albanian land in any meaningful sense. The mountains where his family had held authority for generations were now Ottoman property. In 1443, the Hungarian general John Hunyadi launched a Christian military campaign into Ottoman-held territory, the Crusade of Varna. The Ottomans mobilized, and Skanderbeg was deployed with an Ottoman force to meet the threat in what is now Serbia. At the Battle of Niš, November 3, 1443, Skanderbeg did something that most men in his position would have considered unthinkable. He deserted. With approximately 300 Albanian cavalrymen who had served under him, he broke away from the Ottoman army in the middle of an active campaign. He forged, some say fabricated entirely, some say obtained through cunning negotiation, a document bearing what appeared to be a sultan's order granting him administrative control of Krujë, his ancestral stronghold, the fortress his family had held before his father submitted to the Ottomans. He rode for Albania, fast, before the deception could be discovered. He arrived at Krujë on November 28, 1443, 25 days after the defection at Niš. The Ottoman garrison opened the gates for the man they believed carried orders from the Sultan himself. Skanderbeg walked in. He had the garrison killed. He raised his family banner, a black, double-headed eagle on a red field, the heraldic symbol of the Kastrioti family and the Byzantine Empire. He declared his reconversion to Christianity, publicly, formally, politically. Whether he had maintained a private faith throughout his years in the Ottoman court, or whether this was a strategic reclamation, we cannot know with certainty. What we know is the public act. He declared himself Christian. He declared himself the defender of Albanian lands, and he wrote immediately to the Pope and to the European powers. And then he did one more thing that reveals exactly how clearly he understood what was coming. On March 2, 1444, barely 3 months after his return, Skanderbeg gathered the Albanian lords, rivals, competing families, men who had spent generations fighting each other over mountain territories. He got them into a room. The League of Gjergj was a military and political alliance of Albanian noble families, with Skanderbeg as supreme commander. Think about what that required. These were not men who collaborated naturally. The Albanian highlands had been fractured by feudal competition for centuries. Skanderbeg convinced them, through a combination of charisma, argument, and clear-eyed presentation of the alternative, that the Ottoman Empire was the existential threat that made their own rivalries irrelevant. He had been in the Ottoman military for 20 years. He knew what was coming. He had perhaps 6 months before the first Ottoman force arrived. He used every day. And you know very damn well what comes next. Sultan Mehmed II did not find this amusing. He sent a force into Albania. Estimates vary between 25 and 40,000 men, larger than most Western European kingdoms could field in their entirety. Against it, Skanderbeg had assembled somewhere between 10 and 15,000 men. June 29, 1444. A valley in central Albania called Torviol. Here is what the Ottomans expected: a desperate, outnumbered Albanian force that would break under the weight of their cavalry. The kind of engagement the Ottoman war machine had executed 100 times across 100 campaigns. Send the Sipahi cavalry. The line breaks. The pursuit begins. It ends in an afternoon. What they found instead was a battlefield that their commander had not chosen. Skanderbeg had chosen it. He understood Ottoman tactics at a granular level. their reliance on cavalry charges across open ground, followed by Janissary infantry to mop up the broken line. He knew exactly how their commanders thought because he had been one of their commanders. So he did not fight them on ground where their tactics worked. He chose Torviol precisely because the forested ridgelines flanking the central terrain allowed him to conceal cavalry units out of sight of the Ottoman vanguard. He let their force advance into the valley floor. He let them commit. The Ottoman center, focused entirely on the enemy in front of them, had no idea that units were moving through the tree line on both sides. He hit both flanks simultaneously. The Ottoman force shattered. 8,000 Ottoman soldiers died at Torviol. Let that sink in for a moment. 8,000. Not a border skirmish, not a minor setback. An army that had not suffered a tactical defeat of that magnitude in a generation. Destroyed in a mountain valley by a man they had trained. Mehmed II sent another army. Skanderbeg destroyed it at Oranik. He sent another. Skanderbeg destroyed it at Mokra. Name after name, battle after battle. Torviol, Oranik, Mokra, Otonete, Berat. The League of Lege was not just holding, it was winning. Pope Eugenius IV called him the Athleta Christi, the athlete of Christ. Alfonso V of Naples called him the greatest commander of his age. Envoys arrived from Hungary. Venice watched with carefully managed fascination. And Sultan Murad II, one of the most capable military commanders in Ottoman history, died in February 1451, having never taken Albania back. His successor was 21 years old. His name was Mehmed. 9 months after ascending the throne, he conquered Constantinople. Ladies and gentlemen, the man who had just ended the Byzantine Empire, the 1,000-year successor to Rome, now turned his full attention to the Albanian mountains. Before we continue, if you have never heard this story before, and you are finding it as extraordinary as I do, you know what to do. Subscribe, because this channel exists to bring back the names that history chose to erase. And we are just getting started. Now, where were we? The man who conquered Constantinople had just turned his entire attention to one Albanian fortress. Let me tell you what Krujë actually was, because the word castle does not capture it. Krujë was a mountain fortress positioned on a ridge in the Albanian Alps, at an elevation that made conventional siege warfare nearly impossible. The approach was a single, narrow path up the ridge, easily defended, impossible to assault with mass formations. The walls were built into the natural rock of the mountain itself. There were no wide, flat approaches for siege towers. There was nowhere to position artillery in the numbers required to reduce stone walls of that thickness. It was, in military engineering terms, a nightmare to besiege. And Skanderbeg, who had grown up knowing every path in those mountains and had spent 2 years reinforcing the fortifications since his return, had made it worse. Mehmed II sent his first major force against Krujë in 1450. Ottoman chronicles suggest 100,000 men. Most modern historians consider that figure inflated, but no historian disputes the result. The Ottomans camped below the fortress. They bombarded it. They attempted assaults up the ridge. They were repelled. They tried again. And here is where Skanderbeg did something that military historians still study today. He refused to be besieged. Most commanders in his position would have locked themselves inside the fortress walls and waited, hoping for relief, hoping the besieging army ran out of food or patience. That was standard medieval defensive doctrine. Skanderbeg rejected it entirely. While the Ottoman main force sat below Krujë, he led mobile cavalry units out through secondary mountain passes. He attacked their supply convoys. He destroyed foraging parties. He struck at night. He used Albanian mountain terrain his men navigated by memory, terrain that disoriented Ottoman soldiers to make the siege itself unsustainable. You cannot feed 100,000 men in the Albanian highlands without reliable supply lines. Skanderbeg cut the supply lines. The Ottoman force began to starve. Disease spread in the camp below the fortress walls. After months, Mehmed II withdrew without having breached the fortress. He had not even gotten inside the walls. He came back. 1. Skanderbeg was now in his early 60s. 23 years of continuous war. His coalition had fractured and reformed multiple times. Venice had made and broken treaties with the Ottomans around him. Several Albanian lords had switched sides. His territory had contracted. His resources were thinner. He had never stopped. Mehmed II's second great siege of Krujë lasted months. It failed. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to hold that clearly in your mind. Mehmed II, the Conqueror, the man who deployed the largest cannons in the world to break the walls of Constantinople, walls that had held against every army in Europe for 1,000 years. The man who ended the Byzantine Empire, the man who would go on to conquer most of the Balkans and reach within striking distance of Vienna. He sent his finest armies, his most experienced siege engineers, and his full strategic attention to a single Albanian mountain fortress. Twice. Both times, he went home without it. There is a detail from this period that tells you more about Mehmed's frustration than any military statistic can. After one of his generals reported yet another supply convoy destroyed in the mountains, men ambushed in a pass, supplies burned, the Ottoman camp going without, Mehmed II reportedly asked, "Is that man made of iron?" He was not made of iron. He was made of the same flesh as every soldier who had ever fought in those mountains. He bled. He lost men he could not replace. He watched allies defect and made compromises he did not want to make. There were months when the entire enterprise must have seemed held together by force of will alone. Because it was. But this is what tactical genius fused with absolute refusal actually looks like. Not perfection. Not a clean, heroic narrative. It looks like endurance. It looks like choosing every single morning for 25 years to keep going. Because this is what it looks like to refuse to lose. Here is the part of the story that most military histories skip entirely. Because the battles are dramatic, the sieges are spectacular. But the thing that kept the resistance alive for 25 years was not military genius alone. It was diplomacy. Skanderbeg understood with absolute clarity that he could not hold Albania alone indefinitely. He did not have the population, the resources, or the manpower to sustain attrition against an empire. He needed European support. Intermittent, unreliable, politically complicated European support, but support nonetheless. And he was brilliant at extracting it. He negotiated with the Kingdom of Naples. He received subsidies from multiple popes, Calixtus III, Pius II, Paul II, all of whom understood that if Albania fell, the Ottoman road into Italy opened. He was given titles and land holdings in Italy by Alfonso V of Naples as a contingency, because the kings of Europe, even as they celebrated him, were quietly preparing for the possibility that he would eventually lose. He worked with Venice. This relationship was genuinely complicated. Venice maintained active trade relationships with the Ottoman Empire even while funding Skanderbeg's resistance, because Venice was a merchant republic that placed commerce above ideology. Skanderbeg needed their money and their supply routes. Venice needed his resistance to slow Ottoman expansion toward their Adriatic holdings. It was not friendship. It was aligned self-interest, expertly managed. Pope Pius II called him the shield of Christendom. Not the sword, the shield. Think about that framing. Not an offensive weapon, a defensive one. something that absorbs the blow so that the thing behind it survives. That was his role, understood clearly by every European power watching from a comfortable distance. Now, and this is the part that almost never gets told, let us talk about the betrayals. Several Albanian lords defected to the Ottomans during those 25 years. They made separate arrangements. They handed over territories. They calculated that Ottoman rule was preferable to an endless war they were not sure could be won. You would expect Skanderbeg to have had them executed. Sometimes he did not. Sometimes, strategically, he forgave them, welcomed them back into the coalition when the Ottomans, as the Ottomans inevitably did, broke their promises and treated the defectors exactly as harshly as they had treated everyone else. This was not sentimentality. This was psychology. He understood that permanently punishing every defector would shrink his coalition to nothing. He understood that the Ottomans would create new defectors for him by behaving predictably. So he left the door open. A man who can be forgiven will come back. A man who has been permanently condemned will stay on the other side. He rebuilt his coalition multiple times. This is the achievement that gets buried beneath the battle counts. The military victories are real and they are extraordinary, but holding a fractured coalition of Albanian lords together for 25 years, through defections, through periods of defeat, through the deaths of allies and the wavering of European support, that required a kind of political intelligence we rarely discuss when we talk about Skanderbeg. He was not just a warrior, he was a statesman, a psychologist, a governor, and a logistician, all simultaneously under existential pressure for a quarter of a century. When you live by the sword, you will most likely die by it. But Skanderbeg knew that the sword alone was never going to be enough. By the mid-1460s, Skanderbeg was in his 60s, and the mathematics of the war were becoming brutal. His territory had contracted significantly. The sustained Ottoman pressure, while never taking Krujë, had taken surrounding towns and cut off resources the resistance depended on. European subsidies arrived irregularly. His army, never large, was smaller than it had been in the peak years of the 1450s. In 1464, he traveled to Italy. He met with Pope Pius II in Ancona, who was organizing what he hoped would be a new crusade against the Ottomans, a massive European coalition that would finally push the empire back. Skanderbeg was celebrated in Rome, treated as the foremost Christian warrior alive. He had, by any measure, already accomplished something that no one else in Europe had done, held the Ottoman Empire's full military attention for 2 decades, and refused to be conquered. Pope Pius II died in August 1464, before the crusade could depart. The crusade died with him. Skanderbeg returned to Albania. He fought on. 1466, the Second Great Ottoman Siege of Krujë, failed. 1467, continued resistance across the Albanian highlands. He was 62 years old and he was still in the field. January 17, 1468, in the coastal city of Gjergj, not during a siege, not on the battlefield, not with a sword in his hand, Gjergj Kastrioti Skanderbeg died of malaria. He had been at war continuously for 25 years. He had never surrendered. He had never been defeated in a pitched battle. And the moment he was gone, the mathematics changed completely. Krujë held for 10 more years after his death, a testament to the fortifications he had built and the people who maintained what he had created. But without him to coordinate the coalition, without him to lead the mobile cavalry raids, without him to hold the fractured Albanian lords together through force of personality and shared purpose, the resistance eroded. Krujë fell to the Ottomans in 1478. Albania was absorbed. When news of Skanderbeg's death reached Mehmed II, the man who had sent his finest armies against him and failed again and again, the Sultan reportedly said, "Asia and Europe are mine at last. Woe to Christendom! It has lost its sword and shield." Not a sword, not a shield. Its sword, its shield. The definitive article, the singular, the irreplaceable. The man who had never defeated him in the field acknowledged, at the moment of his death, that no one else had come close. And then, this is where the story moves from military history into something stranger. The Ottomans reportedly exhumed his grave. His body was disinterred. His bones were divided and carried as talismans by Ottoman soldiers, who believed that whatever quality had made this man unbreakable in life might be transferred through physical contact with what remained of him. The empire that could not break him in life tried to absorb his power in death. Ladies and gentlemen, let that sink in for a moment. Here is the thing about Skanderbeg that no one tells you cleanly. His erasure from global historical consciousness did not happen because people forgot him. It happened because too many people remembered him differently. Albania calls him Ata-i Kombit, father of the nation. His face is on Albanian currency. His eagle became the Albanian national flag. His name is on the national football stadium. He is the founding figure of Albanian identity. Serbia points to his mother's possible Serbian noble lineage. Historians have argued for centuries that his roots connect to Serbian nobility and that his story belongs in their national tradition. Greek scholars note his Orthodox Christian faith, his connections to Greek ecclesiastical structures. The historical reality that ethnic identity in medieval Albania was far more fluid than modern national borders suggest. And the Ottoman Empire, which spent 25 years trying to destroy him, named him after Alexander the Great, and then tried to wear his bones as talismans. 5 countries, 5 claims, no consensus, no clean ownership. Here is what most people don't know. During the Cold War, Communist Albania systematically suppressed the most inconvenient parts of his story. The Catholic faith, the papal alliances, the deeply Christian framing of his resistance against the Islamic Empire. Because Communist Albania needed a secular national hero for a Marxist-Leninist state, not a Catholic crusader fighting in the name of Christian Europe. So they kept the military victories. They erased the religious dimension. They rebuilt him as a nationalist icon for a political system he would not have recognized, and might have fought with the same tenacity he fought the Ottomans. That is not history. That is political editing. And Western Europe, which had celebrated him as the shield of Christendom during his lifetime, which had sent him money and diplomats and the Pope's personal blessing, largely moved on after his death. The Ottoman threat continued regardless. Constantinople was already gone. The crusading impulse that had given his resistance its European significance was dying. He had been useful as a symbol when he lived. After he died, he became a complicated footnote. Not because his story was not extraordinary, because it was too complicated to assign cleanly to anyone. Albanian but raised Ottoman, Christian but trained Muslim, a lord but forged in servitude, claimed by 5 nations, which means fully owned by none. History prefers clean stories, stories with one people, one flag, one lineage, one destiny. Skanderbeg's story was never clean. It was fractured from the beginning. A child given to his enemies, shaped by their culture, returned to fight them. That story does not fit inside a single national myth. So each nation took the piece it needed and buried the rest. And what survived in the gaps between their competing claims was not a man. It was a symbol, a flag, a stadium name, a face on a coin, not a story. Here is what cannot be erased, regardless of who claims it. One man, 62 years old at the end. A quarter century of continuous war against an empire that had crushed everything in its path. 25 engagements, not one tactical defeat in open battle, not one surrender, not one moment where the fortress gates opened to the enemy while he still breathed. His training was Ottoman, his formation was the empire's. They gave him the tools, the tactics, the military education that made him formidable. And every single thing they gave him, he turned against them. He did not defeat the Ottomans permanently. History does not offer permanent victories. Krujë fell 10 years after he died. Albania was absorbed. The empire continued its expansion for another 2 centuries. But here is what he actually did. For 25 years, while every other Christian power in the Balkans fell, one by one, Bulgaria, Serbia, Byzantium itself, one man in the Albanian mountains held the line. He bought time. He demonstrated, at a scale no one else had, that the Ottoman advance was not inevitable, that one commander with the right terrain and the right tactics and an absolute refusal to accept the mathematics of defeat could hold. He was the proof of concept, and the proof cost him everything he had. When his bones were carried as talismans by the soldiers of the empire that could not break him, they were admitting something in the only language they had left. That some men carry something inside them that empires cannot touch, cannot buy, cannot train out of them, cannot siege away. Call it will, call it faith, call it the thing a boy decides in the silence of a foreign court, watching everything, waiting, knowing exactly what he is going to do when the moment comes. He was born Gjergj Kastrioti, in a mountain district that 5 nations still argue over. He was shaped by the greatest empire of his age. He came home. He held. Ladies and gentlemen, because their story was written down, preserved, and told again and again through the centuries, the name that history tried to fracture into 5 pieces has survived whole. His name was Skanderbeg, and now you will never forget it again. If this story found you the way it found me, in the gap between what history books include and what they leave out, then you already know what to do. Subscribe. Share this with someone who has never heard his name, because the only weapon against erasure is memory. And right now, you are holding it. Next episode, one emperor, 49 years on the Byzantine throne. A military campaign so brutal that his enemies gave him a name they meant as a curse, and he wore it like a crown. He blinded 15,000 men in a single afternoon. He sent them home in columns of 100, each column led by a man with one eye, so they could find their way back to their king. When their king saw them coming, he collapsed. He died 2 days later. And the man who ordered it? He went back to Constantinople. He finished his dinner. He ruled for another 20 years. His name was Basil II. The West calls him the Bulgar Slayer, when they call him anything at all. Most people have never heard his name. We are going to fix that. That is next.